Got talent? Brian Leni runs Junior Stock Review and underlines the importance of management when assessing junior resource companies. Brian, welcome to Kitco.
Thank you for having me.
Let's step back a bit. What's this macro environment looking like in 2024?
That's a really interesting question. I think the person who can answer that is going to be doing very well. I think a couple of things. I think that the gold price is very telling of what we could see in 2024.
Yeah.
It's high. I think most people are predicting that the Fed's going to pivot in policy, and with that could be a windfall in terms of further monetary expansion. And I think that's kind of what it's signaling. You also have a U.S. presidential election, which is always interesting. There's going to be more money spent this year than we've seen in the previous years. There could be turmoil with the wars going on in the Middle East and part of Europe. So there's a lot of question marks. There's a lot of risk there, and I think that's why you're seeing a high gold price. But I think that could translate really well for investors because especially on the precious metal side, the equities have really languished, and there's a divergence or a gap that I see that needs to be filled. And if it does, then we could be in for a really interesting year.
Let's talk about that gap right now. I mean, resource sector has obviously been struggling. I looked at the GDX, and then it's down like about 14% last time I looked over the past year, whereas if something compared to like a tech has just gone absolutely bazooka right now as well, too. We're at the Metals Investor Forum right now. I will say that the attendance looks pretty good right now, but when you're talking to the individual juniors right now, they're just kind of having a tough time of it.
Yep.
Yeah. What's going to be taking in terms of if you're somebody that wants to position yourself into the sector right now, what types of companies are you looking for?
So for me personally, I have a big proponent on self realization.
Yes.
And so I have a sweet spot, and to me that's the developers. I like the contrast of having intrinsic value, meaning these companies have something of value. They have a resource, they have an economic study, there's something outlined that's real. And then mix in that with exploration potential to expand that deposit or some sort of value add. That's where the companies I like to be in. But I think any individual investor needs to understand what they know and what they don't know, and what type of risk they're willing to take and the timeline to achieve those profits if they're there. And that kind of direct you. So for me, I'm on the developer side. I like those companies, again, that have intrinsic value. So for me, I'm looking for markets like we're talking about precious metals. I think the equity valuations in respect to the metal price are at a really nice gap. And that's where I'm looking to deploy some money. That in copper. I think copper, for a metal that's going to be so important moving forward for this energy transition, there's really a dichotomy between what society, they say they want net carbon zero emissions, but we don't want any mining in our backyards, which is a problem, but it's positive from a supply aspect. And, Cobre Panama, we see what's happened, 1.5% of the world copper production is gone overnight, and it doesn't get replaced that quick. And so the supply side of copper moving forward should be really interesting. And I think if you're willing to give yourself maybe a little bit more of a time span, maybe looking out 2 years, I think you buy the right companies, you give yourself that time span, and maybe the copper price will cooperate and you can get some profits out of it. But nothing is ever for sure in this. So usually your timeline has to be a little bit longer than you'd like.
I understand with developers, say you want to go further down to explorers as well too, and then you're interested in making investment there. What I really like about your presentations, Brian, is that you're taking a lot of how would you say, very technical subjects, and then you're kind of boiling them down to like thumbnails, for instance. So maybe you could talk a little bit about how you value an exploration company.
Absolutely. And this is a part of the market that is very abstract.
Yeah.
Because really the valuation of an exploration company, we're talking about companies that besides people, they really don't have anything. And it's the ability of those people to sell a story that a lot of people are buying. Now, mixed with that, I think there's some points to look for. And I think, you want to look at things that are big expansions of land, like 50,000 plus hectares. You want to look at plots of land that haven't been extensively explored. You want to make sure that whatever landscape, whether this is in the Abitibi or if this is in the Gold Triangle, that the management team has experience that matches what they're doing. If they did all their exploration in Africa for oxide gold, now they're in Canada in the Abitibi looking for orogenic or mesothermal gold. It doesn't necessarily match. So you match those sorts of things. And for me, a big component, and this isn't available to everybody, but I look at the personal side of it. Who do I know that these management team knows that can vouch for them to a certain degree? Because these are the people that I'm going to have to rely on for information and their ability to sell the company. So also that connection I have with other people and my evaluation of that person when I meet them are points that I look for exploration. But like I said, out of a 20 company portfolio that I have, 5 or 6 companies are exploration, and that's just directed on me and the risk and what I see in the companies. That's where it occupies my portfolio.
Also developing, or should I say modeling the value of an exploration company, it also has to do with benchmarks as well too. So
Right.
something that you can't really understand, but you can take an exploration silver company and compare it against its benchmarks, correct?
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. There is some ambiguity though too,
Yep.
because different jurisdictions, like a silver company in Peru versus a silver company in Nevada, or Mexico, very different jurisdictions, 3 very different value propositions probably. So they're each going to be different, but yeah, absolutely. You can take some comparisons. You can see what other companies are being valued at, and kind of go from there. And the other thing is getting in as early as possible with these companies when the market caps truly are low. And I think this environment that we're in right now is a wonderful place for investors interested in exploration, because across the board we're looking at some great valuations.
How do you feel about geopolitical risk?
For me, it's all about price,
Yes,
primarily.
okay, yeah.
And I wouldn't say there are some jurisdictions where I'm not interested in going in, but I'm not scared of Africa. I have some investments in there, and it was all based off price and what I thought that potential profit could be. Again, I think one of the bigger things becomes timeline. You can deal with some political turmoil in the short term, but again, you need to be able to see 2 years out, 3 years out. I think a lot of investors, rightly, they do look at political turmoil and say, hey, I don't want to be a part of that. But I think most of this stuff does tend to blow over time. And you look at the problems, let's say Chile, for example. They had some political things going on, wasn't that attractive, valuations dropped. That was a great opportunity if you wanted to come in, and they've kind of sorted that out. And I think you're going to see it steadily get a little bit better. So again, like buying share prices generally at good valuations, you can buy the hard jurisdictions. When turmoil is its highest, that's when the opportunity is there. And if you have the courage and the outlook, I think you can take advantage of it.
Then let's talk about top ideas and top opportunities right now. It is the start of 2024. We're talking about the macro environment. It looks like the ratcheting is over right now. Maybe we're going to see a risk-on environment with what's happening. What do you like? What works for you?
Let's go with the exploration topic. I think there's 2 exploration companies right now that have a good risk profile and good upside potential. The first one that I would say is Orion Resources. They're focusing on the central Lapland greenstone belt in Finland. They have a great management team, and particularly they have a great JV with B2 Gold, which is right coincident with the Ikari deposit, which is Rupert Resources. I would say it's probably arguably the best undeveloped gold deposit held by Junior right now. They're coincident. I think that the valuation that the value that they've created through drilling on the JV project and what it could mean to Ikari moving forward, I think that justifies the market cap as it is.
Yeah.
So you're getting all the exploration upside of Risty and Lowney for free. And so I love those sorts of situations where my downside's protected, yet the exploration could be, who knows. Another company, Cornelian Minerals, they just did a deal with Sumitomo. Their original discovery at Frotet, the Renault discovery, amazing undercover discovery in Quebec. Sumitomo has decided to buy out that 20% position that Cornelian had, their prospect generator, for a 4% royalty. They can buy it back to 3.25%. But again, I think that royalty position now that they have on this potential, I think, multi-billion ounce gold deposit justifies Cornelian's market cap as it is. So you get the $20 million cash for free, and you get their suite of projects, again, for free. And so again, I love these situations where I've got my downside protected, and we're talking about exploration and 10x, 100x. These things aren't out of the question, especially when you talk about top tier exploration teams.
Brian, thanks for your time.
Thank you for having me.
My name is Michael McRae here at the Metals Investor Forum on behalf of Kitco Mining.